The drama surrounding the heavyweight clash between Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke was the kind of spectacle boxing fans dream about. Two powerful British heavyweights, each with something to prove, stepped into the ring under the bright lights, carrying not only their reputations but also the expectations of a roaring crowd. The air inside the arena was thick with anticipation. Heavyweight boxing always carries a special kind of tension, the understanding that a single punch can end everything in an instant. And on this night, both men looked ready to deliver exactly that kind of drama. When the bell rang for the opening round, there was an unmistakable electricity in the air. Heavyweights bring a different presence to the sport. Every step feels heavier, every movement more deliberate, and every punch carries the potential to change the fight in a heartbeat. Both fighters knew it, and both approached the early moments cautiously but with intent. Frazer Clarke began the fight looking composed and technically sharp. His amateur pedigree showed immediately. The jab came out clean and disciplined, snapping toward Wardley's face with precision. Clarke was building his rhythm from the fundamentals, establishing distance, controlling the tempo, and forcing Wardley to react. For a moment, it looked as though Clarke might impose his technical advantage early. Wardley, however, had a completely different style. Where Clarke was tidy and methodical, Wardley was explosive and unpredictable. He pushed forward with that dangerous energy that has defined his career, a fighter who might not always look polished, but who carries frightening power in every swing. He tried to counter Clarke's jab with a looping right hand, looking for that early statement punch that could shift momentum instantly. The opening exchanges set the tone for the night. Clarke's jab found its mark repeatedly, but Wardley wasn't intimidated. Every time Clarke stepped forward with technique, Wardley answered with raw aggression. It was the classic clash of styles, refined skill versus unpredictable power. As the fight moved into the second round, the tension began to rise. Wardley emerged with a slightly more aggressive approach. He understood that allowing Clarke to settle into a comfortable rhythm would be dangerous. So instead, he pressed forward, forcing exchanges and trying to drag Clarke into a more chaotic fight. Clarke, to his credit, stayed composed. His jab continued to land with authority, and he mixed in sharp right hands that pierced through Wardley's guard. One of those counters caught Wardley clean, drawing the first visible blood from the bridge of his nose. It was a sign that Clarke's accuracy could be a serious problem as the fight progressed. But Wardley refused to back down. He planted his feet and fired back with heavy shots of his own, including a powerful right hand that made Clarke cover up momentarily. Suddenly, the fight was no longer just a technical battle. It had become a war of will. The third round saw Wardley beginning to find his rhythm. He dipped his knees and targeted Clarke's body, trying to sap the energy from his opponent. Clarke remained technically sound, but Wardley's erratic movements made him difficult to read. He pulled back from punches with his head high, a risky tactic, but he compensated with explosive counters that came from strange angles. The exchanges became more intense. Both fighters were landing meaningful shots, and the crowd could sense that this contest was building towards something special. Clarke still appeared slightly more organized, but Wardley's power kept every moment dangerous. By the fourth round, the fight had transformed into a bruising battle. Clarke continued to win many of the jab exchanges, his right hand landing sharply whenever Wardley stepped too far forward. Yet Wardley's unpredictability kept Clarke cautious. Every time Wardley launched a wild right hand, it carried enough force to remind everyone why heavyweight boxing can change in an instant. Both fighters were beginning to show the marks of battle. Wardley's face was already swelling, and Clarke had a small scratch forming near his eye. Neither man was willing to give ground. Then came the fifth round, a moment that would change the entire narrative of the fight. Wardley began the round with renewed urgency. He fired combinations, finishing exchanges with a sharp jab before looking for that devastating right hand. Clarke responded with counters of his own, but Wardley's pressure was building. Then suddenly it happened. Wardley unleashed a perfectly timed right hand that caught Clarke as he was slightly off balance. The impact sent Clarke crashing to the canvas. The arena erupted instantly. It was the first knockdown of the fight, a huge moment that swung the momentum dramatically in Wardley's favor. Clarke rose to his feet, but the message had been sent. Wardley's power was real, and one clean shot had nearly changed everything. The sixth round began with Wardley full of confidence. He pursued Clarke aggressively, searching for the finishing blow. But Clarke demonstrated incredible resilience. He maneuvered carefully, using his jab to create space and prevent Wardley from landing another decisive shot. Despite the knockdown, Clarke was far from finished. Heavyweight boxing is often about survival as much as it is about offense, and Clarke showed the heart of a true competitor. As the fight entered the later rounds, fatigue began to creep in. The pace had been relentless, and both men were paying the price. Clarke's once razor-sharp jab began to slow slightly, while Wardley's explosive attacks required enormous bursts of energy. In the seventh round, a controversial moment added even more drama. Clarke landed a body shot that the referee ruled low, resulting in a point deduction. The decision immediately became a talking point, as losing a point in such a close fight could prove critical. Still, the battle continued. Round after round, both fighters dug deep. Wardley's nose was badly damaged and bleeding heavily, making it difficult for him to breathe. Yet he kept coming forward, throwing punches with everything he had left. Clarke, meanwhile, relied on his technical discipline. He picked his shots carefully, conserving energy while still landing clean punches whenever opportunities appeared. By the 9th and 10th rounds, the fight had reached the kind of brutal intensity that defines classic heavyweight contests. Both men were exhausted, but neither would surrender. Wardley continued to throw that looping right hand, sometimes missing wildly, but sometimes landing with frightening force. Clarke answered with straight punches down the middle, exploiting Wardley's defensive gaps. The 10th round was particularly dramatic. Wardley landed a massive right hand that momentarily shook Clarke and forced him backward. Sensing opportunity, Wardley launched a furious attack, throwing punches in rapid succession. But Clarke survived the storm, using his jab and movement to escape the danger. With only 2 rounds remaining, it was clear that the fight could still go either way. By the 11th round, both fighters looked completely drained. Their movements were slower, their punches heavier but less frequent. Yet the determination remained. Clarke briefly trapped Wardley against the ropes and unleashed a series of punches, hoping to secure a late advantage. But Wardley, despite his injuries and exhaustion, somehow fought his way back into the center of the ring. It was the kind of courage that defines great fighters. Then came the 12th and final round. The crowd roared as both men stepped forward for one last battle. There were no more strategies left, no more energy to conserve. This was simply about heart. Wardley threw a hard right to the body, trying to weaken Clarke for a final attack. Clarke responded with a hook that narrowly missed. Both men swung with everything they had left. The final minute was pure chaos. Punches flew from both sides, neither fighter willing to take a backward step. They were exhausted warriors, giving everything they had in the final moments of a grueling fight. When the final bell rang, the arena exploded with applause. Both fighters had delivered a spectacular contest, the kind of fight that reminds everyone why heavyweight boxing remains one of the most thrilling spectacles in sports. Then came the moment of truth. The judges' scorecards were read. 113 to 113. A draw. Neither man had done quite enough to separate himself from the other. After 12 brutal rounds, the fight remained dead even. For some fans, it was a controversial outcome. For others, it was the perfect reflection of what had unfolded inside the ring. Two warriors pushing each other to their limits. One thing was certain. The rivalry between Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke had produced an unforgettable heavyweight battle. And perhaps the most intriguing question remained unanswered. If these two step into the ring again, who will finally walk away victorious? If you enjoyed this breakdown of an incredible heavyweight war, make sure to share your thoughts. Did Wardley deserve the victory after scoring the knockdown? Or did Clarke's technical performance earn him the edge? And if a rematch happens, who do you think wins the second fight? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more dramatic boxing stories and fight breakdowns.